Welcome to the Way of the Taibhsear podcast. This is episode 18, The Inner Journey. This week's Celtic goddess is Anya. She's the Irish goddess of love. She also rules over peace, prosperity, and the summer months. Her symbol is a scarlet mare, and she's also associated with the Irish horse lore. In many lands, a midsummer night feast is held in her honor, and this tradition is honored at the summer solstice by many modern druids. Igobel is Anya's mother, and she is the sister of Finan and Eileen. In some myths, her father is the sea god Manannán mac Lir. In other myths, he is her husband. The ancient name of the hill of Knockany in County Limerick in Ireland is Knock Anya. This and the surrounding areas often hold bonfires and feasts in her honor. Just as the Holly King and the Oak King represent lighter and darker portions of the year, so do Anya and Grian. Anya, a sun goddess, rules over the lighter half of the year, and Grian is the dark goddess who rules over the winter sun. Plants associated with Anya include the blackberry, hawthorn, and mistletoe. Her sacred animals include crows and other black creatures. Invoke Anya in matters of romantic love, enlightenment, and prosperity. If she has come into your life, you may need assistance with relationships or in planning for your future security. The first triad of the Order of the Taibhsear is the triad of Earth Path, Sun Path, and Moon Path. The Earth Path involves being grounded and rooted in nature. It's about how we deal with nature and how she deals with us. The Sun Path is how we seek the inspiration of the Imbus or the Awan by celebrating and reflecting upon the wheel of the year. The Moon Path is where we focus on the light of the divine within ourselves. The first triad of the Moon Path involves meditation, dream work, and shamanism, or vision seeking. The word Taibhsear means vision seeker. We will discuss each of these separately. We should first establish some general principles for the inner journey of the Moon Path. Why do inner work in the first place? Many of us carry a vision of who we would like to be. We also carry a vision of who we perceive ourselves to be at this moment in time. The humanist psychologist Carl Rogers called these two visions the ideal self and the real or perceived self. At the times when we do not feel at peace with ourselves because of some anxiety, stress, or depression, it is most often due to a conflict between our vision of who we would want to be and who we actually perceive ourselves to be. In other words, we experience a conflict between the ideal self and the perceived self. Let's return for a moment to our metaphor of the wheel of the year as a balancing force between the powers of chaos and order, as we discussed in past podcasts. From this perspective, the ideal self represents the power of order, and the perceived self represents the power of chaos. The way to strike a balance between these two powers is to introduce a little chaos into the order, or to introduce a little order into the chaos. What would this balance look like in actual practice? If conflict and inner turmoil are arising within you because of the gap between your ideal self and your perceived self, then the way to achieve a balance would be to narrow that gap or to close it completely. Suppose, for example, that your ideal self is a person who is organized, punctual, and capable of completing multiple tasks at once during a day. On the other hand, your perceived self, or the person you see yourself as, is not very organized, always late, and incapable of meeting all the goals you set for yourself in a day. The conflict within you has arisen in this case because you've set impossible standards for yourself, yet you feel you should be able to meet those standards anyway. One way to find a balance in this situation would be to realize that your ideal self doesn't have to be perfectly organized and punctual all the time, thereby allowing a little chaos to enter into this perfect order you've established for yourself in your vision of your ideal self. Another way to introduce balance is to impose a little order upon the chaos of your perceived self by taking the time to plan better so that you're more able to meet the schedule set by your ideal self. The ultimate goal of the inner journey of the moon path is to strike a perfect balance between the ideal self and the perceived self. This is the triad of ideal self, perceived self, and individuation. Individuation in this case means that you have achieved a state of balance and integration between your persona and your shadow, or between chaos and order. The more you learn about your own inner wants, needs, and desires, and the reasons for them, the more you will draw closer to achieving the balance of individuation. In short, if you can change your thoughts and feelings, you can change your world. But in order to change your thoughts and feelings, you must first know what those thoughts and feelings are. The moon path is a way to learn about your thoughts and feelings so that you may change them if you choose to. Another triad of the moon path is acceptance, change, and wisdom. The Serenity Prayer says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There are many things we may wish to change about ourselves and about the world. We may even be able to change many of them. But those things we cannot change, we must learn to accept. If we do not, then we will be endlessly frustrated by attempting the impossible. Of course, it can be very difficult to tell which things we can change and which things we cannot. This is where the wisdom enters into the picture. One purpose of the moon path is to gain enough inner wisdom to be able to know the difference between the things we can change and the things we must accept. One way to gain such wisdom is to consider the triad of past, present, and future. Think for a moment about the last time you were anxious or stressed out. Do you remember what caused you anxiety? Did the cause of your worry have something to do with an event that happened in the past, or an event that might happen in the future? Until someone invents a time machine, or until Doctor Who comes along, there's no way to go back and change the past. So worrying about something that has happened in the past is counterproductive. Likewise, if you're worrying about something that may or may not happen in the future, you're wasting your energy that could be better put to use in the here and now. Unless you have a crystal ball or a gift of clairvoyance, there's no way of knowing for certain what may happen in the future. By worrying about it, you're expending energy that could be better used to prevent possible future disaster from happening in the first place. Let's bring all these triads together now in order to establish a framework for taking the inner journey. When conflict arises within you due to the conflicts between your ideal self and your perceived self, you restore the balance and eliminate or reduce that conflict by seeking wisdom through acceptance and change. If the conflict between your ideal self and your perceived self has to do with something that happened in the past, or something that might happen in the future, then that is something you'll have to learn to accept, since it's impossible to change the past, and it's impossible to predict the future with any degree of certainty. The only changes you may make involve things that are happening right now, in the present moment. Remember as you set out on the path of making changes in your life that you cannot change anyone but yourself. If problems arise in your life because of the actions of another person, you cannot force that person to do anything. All you can do is to accept that they are who they are. Knowing this, you may then change yourself so that you can accept others more easily. This acceptance can occur more readily if you learn to let go of the past and the future and focus only on the present moment. If, like most people, you find yourself troubled by events from the past, here's a brief banishing ritual that will help you to bury the past and let it go. First, it may help to let others know what you're planning to do. They may be able to assist you with the ritual, or at least to offer emotional support. Create an outdoor space for the ritual. This needs to be a place where you can actually dig a hole for burying the past. Next, gather your support team together, if possible. Dig a hole in the ground and have them circle around it. Write down the nature of the problem that you need to bury, preferably on a piece of parchment. Fold the parchment and burn it while speaking the following. I am letting go of this. I no longer need to carry this burden. It has fulfilled its purpose. I am grateful for what I have learned by carrying this problem, but having learned its lessons, I now choose to be free of it. After burning the parchment and speaking the words above, place the ashes in the hole and bury them. You may offer a libation to the gods and goddesses by pouring water, ale, or something similar into the ground. Now thank those who gathered to assist you with this rite. If you would like to make this a group affair, each person could write down a problem from the past they wish to bury. Each writes their own problem on a parchment, burns it, and then places the ashes in the hole. Then each takes turns shoveling dirt into the hole. You may also wish to sing a song or a chant during this process. The key to balancing acceptance and change in your life is to learn more about yourself and your place in the world. The way to do this is to study the first triad of the moon path, which is, as we stated earlier, meditation, dream work, and vision seeking, or the way of the Taibhsear. The basics of this triad are as follows. Meditation is the process of inner contemplation in which you elevate your consciousness by directing it to specific activities. Druid and Taibhsear meditation is not about transcendence. It's more about being present in the here and now. There are two basic types of meditation: active meditation and passive meditation. Passive meditation is about leaving doing mode and moving into the being mode of existence by leaving thinking mode and entering sensing mode. Active meditation involves focusing your consciousness on a particular activity. Examples of active meditation would be the body scan meditation or any type of creative visualization meditation, such as the Druid's Egg or the Cave. We'll be discussing those meditations in future podcasts. Dream work is much more than just dream interpretation, although it can involve that as well. Dream work is a preliminary step to vision seeking, involving learning how to move from being a passive observer of your dream states to becoming an active participant through the skills of lucid dreaming and creative visualization. Vision seeking, or the way of the Taibhsear, is the way in which we communicate with the spirit world, or if you prefer, the way in which we explore the deep recesses of the collective unconscious mind hidden within our own minds. It's the way by which we enter into the other world to commune with the ancestors. Some believe that this is actually accomplished by making contact with the ancestors in the other world, while others see such contact as taking place within our own minds, perhaps through the agency of genetic memory. At any rate, it's the way that we seek wisdom from the divine ancestors. There's one other thing we should discuss before moving on to the mechanics of the moon path, and that's the concept of self-identity. René Descartes is famous for his assertion that I think, therefore I am. A Taibhsear would probably ask Descartes, does that mean if I stop thinking, I cease to exist? One of the lessons of the moon path is this: you are not your thoughts. Everyone is troubled with dark or negative thoughts from time to time. This doesn't mean that we have to act on those thoughts, nor does it mean that if we have an occasional bad thought, that we have become a bad person. It also means that when you have a thought or feeling, you don't have to believe that that thought or feeling is true. Thoughts are just processes of the brain. You're more than your brain. If you don't believe this, just stop thinking sometime and see if you disappear. For this week's activity, we're going to do a banishing ritual. Think of at least one thing in your life that you'd like to be rid of, and practice the banishing ritual we already talked about earlier. If you choose to write about this experience in your journal, you don't have to mention what it was that you chose to banish if it's too personal. Just write about the experience of practicing the ritual and whether or not it was effective in banishing the thing from your life. To begin this meditation on the meaning of the Awen, first center yourself by emptying your mind of all thoughts. Let go of the cares and the worries of the day by leaving thinking mode. Allow yourself to enter sensing mode, not thinking about anything in particular, but instead focusing only on the information your senses bring to you. When you feel centered, ground yourself by drawing energy from the earth. To do this, visualize the earth's energy as light rising up from the earth to join and mix with your own energy. When you can feel the earth's energy weaving with your own, you're grounded and ready to seek the Awan. Awan is a Welsh word roughly translated as divine inspiration. In Irish, the word for Awan is imbus, and in Scots it's iomas. The Welsh word is Indo-European in origin and comes from the root ywel, which means to blow. In this sense, it could be seen to mean that which takes one's breath away. In other words, the Awan is that which is awe-inspiring. The Awan symbol consists of 3 descending rays. The most basic interpretation of this symbol is 3 rays of divine light descending to the earth, bringing inspiration. The Awan icon may also represent Briad's flaming arrow of poetic inspiration. The Awan is one of the most meaning-rich symbols in most Druid traditions. Sometimes the 3 rays are topped with 3 dots. These 3 dots represent the 3 drops of inspiration Taibhsear received from Caridwen's cauldron of inspiration. These 3 drops led Taibhsear to be a great bard. There are many interpretations of the symbol. The 3 lines can represent earth, sea, and air, or sun, moon, and earth, our body, mind, and spirit, our love, wisdom, and truth. There are no right or wrong interpretations. Inherent in the idea of the Awan is the concept of the union of opposing forces in balance. Each individual Druid derives his or her own meaning from the symbol. Meditate for a moment on what the Awan means to you. More important than the symbol itself is the idea it represents. Awan is the concept of divine inspiration. It is the inspiration of truth. The core element of Druidry is to seek the Awan. The tools and techniques of Druidry are designed to help a Druid achieve Awan. If you've ever had a moment of inspiration when the solution to a problem seemed to come to you in a flash, you've experienced the Awan. If you've ever been particularly moved by a piece of music or a well-acted scene from a drama, you've experienced the Awan. Meditate for a time on the ways that you have experienced the Awan in your life. One of the triads of the Awan is emotional mind, rational mind, and wise mind. In emotional mind, you're reacting totally based on your emotions. If you have trouble controlling your anger or any other powerful emotion, you're in emotional mind. Rational mind, on the other hand, is totally devoid of emotion. Wise mind is a balance of rational mind and emotional mind in perfect harmony. Wise mind is the source of poetic inspiration. It is the Awan. The Awan also represents the balance between chaos and order. As you meditate, consider the forces of chaos in your own life. Chaos is the birthplace of inspiration and new ideas and creativity. How have you experienced chaos in your life? How has this chaos led you to seek new knowledge? How has chaos led you to see things in a new way? How has chaos led you to the Awan? Now consider the forces of order in your life. Order is the birthplace of stability and confidence. How have you experienced order in your own life? How has this order led you to new knowledge? How has order led you to tame the forces of chaos and to master them? How has order led you to the Awan? Now consider the forces of unity in your life. These are the forces that allow you to blend chaos and order into the perfect balance that is the Awan. These forces manifest in a sense of connection to life, to love, and to all life in the universe. How have you experienced unity in your life? How has this unity led you to seek new knowledge? How has unity led you to see things in a new way? How has unity led you to experience the Awan? Now spend some time in quiet contemplation of the unity of chaos and order that is the Awan. What does the Awan mean to you? How does the Awan manifest itself in you? As this meditation draws to a close, consider the lessons you have learned in contemplating the Awan. Allow yourself to slowly come back to this world by gradually becoming aware of your surroundings. When you feel you're ready, open your eyes, taking with you the unity that is the All One. Traditional people of Indian nations have interpreted the two roads that face the light-skinned race as the road to technology and the road to spirituality. We feel that the road to technology has led modern society to a damaged and seared earth. Could it be that the road to technology represents a rush to destruction, and that the road to spirituality represents the slower path that the traditional native people have traveled and are now seeking again? The earth is not scorched on this trail. The grass is still growing there. William Kamanda, Mamawanini, Tribal Elder. With issues like global warming, overpopulation, pollution, and depletion of our natural resources, and peak oil looming on the horizon, it's clear that we cannot continue with a business-as-usual approach to life on this planet without major future consequences. The economist Adam Smith, in his work Wealth of Nations, suggested that in a free market economy, change occurs because people in that market have a vested interest in making the change. In layman's terms, when faced with an economic decision, people generally ask, "What's in it for me?" Unfortunately, a lot of the time we tend to focus on our present short-term goals rather than on farther-reaching future goals. When it comes to taking care of our home, the planet Earth, there doesn't seem to be any immediate advantage to living a more sustainable and environmentally friendly lifestyle. We're creatures of habit, and it's hard to change if we don't see any immediate advantage in doing so. The problem is that an increasing body of evidence indicates that we're having a significant negative impact on the ecosphere. If we don't focus on the long-term damage we're doing to the Earth right now, it may be too late tomorrow. While environmental awareness is on the rise, there are still many who think that sustainability isn't an issue that they should be concerned about. I think that the main reason for this is that people focus on the short-term expense and inconvenience of moving to a more sustainable lifestyle instead of seeing the bigger picture. Building greener homes, driving greener cars, and using more energy-efficient appliances can require more money to start with, but over time the savings can add up, and a sustainable lifestyle can pay for itself many times over. But before this can happen, we need to recognize and realize the benefits. What's needed, in my opinion, is a paradigm shift. We can evolve to a more sustainable way of living, but it means switching to resources that can be replenished or recycled instead of depending on resources that are being rapidly depleted. It also means seeing ourselves as part of the life cycle here on Earth instead of as a separate thing from nature. Our culture will have to grow to adapt to make this happen. We will need a new culture, one that's sustainable without being uncomfortable, spiritual without being dogmatic, and artistic without being exclusive. All culture is a process, and I think the best process of creating a culture is to create one consciously and deliberately. I also believe that the rise of paganism throughout the world reflects a need for such spiritual culture change and an awareness of what we're doing to the planet and to our futures. A crucial step in making this paradigm shift and creating a new culture is to transform our colleges and universities into institutes of environmental education. Environmental programs at colleges throughout the world are on the rise. So are dorms and other facilities designated with environment in mind. Colleges and universities have realized the value of billing themselves as green places. Most new college buildings are being built under LEED standards. LEED is an architectural design principle that focuses on environmental sound practices. There's also an increasing awareness of the need for programs and majors relating to sustainability and permaculture. According to the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, over 100 majors, minors, and certificate programs were created at American colleges and universities in 2015, with focuses on topics like renewable energy and green technology. The heightened interest in environmental education is a good sign that the paradigm shift is occurring. If you or your friends or family members are considering a career in an ecological field, you might want to investigate some of these measures. If you would like to explore the possibilities, a good place to start would be the Environmental Education Directory. That may be found at www.enviroeducation.com. The site offers a comprehensive directory of environmental schools and programs. Ultimately, with a little creativity and imagination, almost any degree can be used to promote a sustainable future. Another trend on college campuses throughout the world is the move towards green buildings and facilities. Universities and colleges across America are going green. In addition to being good for the environment, green facilities may also help to retain students. A 2005 study by the Turner Construction Company reveals that over 70% of school administrators believe that green buildings and facilities enhance a school's ability to recruit and retain teachers and students, and they believe that students perform better in green classrooms. Administrators also think that having green facilities on campus makes their universities more attractive for research grants. Green colleges and universities are very popular now. As universities with ecological facilities and environmental education programs continue to attract more students than their more traditional counterparts, you can be sure that our institutes of higher learning will continue to go green. And as they do so, they will help us with the paradigm shift towards a more sustainable and environmentally friendly future. In the way of the Taibhsear, we use the Celtic tree alphabet known as the Ogham. In this section of the podcast, we will present one character of the Ogham each week, offering information on the meaning of each letter of the Ogham alphabet, trees associated with each letter, the healing and magical properties of each tree, gods and goddesses associated with each tree and letter, and the divinatory meanings of each letter of the Ogham. Since we will be discussing medicinal uses of the plants in this segment of the podcast, please remember that herbal medicine requires caution and practice. None of the medicinal uses discussed on the Way of the Taibhsear podcast should be attempted by a novice. Some parts of the plants of the Ogham are poisonous, and people with allergies should also be aware of the potential allergic reactions to plants. If you are interested in herbal medicine, find a skilled practitioner and take lessons. Do not attempt to use medicinal plants without the supervision of an expert. The letter R of the Ogham alphabet is represented by Ruish, the elder tree. Its divinatory meaning is conversion, transition, and rebirth. Healing properties of the elder. Fresh elder bark can be used to induce labor or to relieve headaches. Steep the flowers of the elderberry to make a tea for soothing sunburn pain. Inhaling the steam from elderberry flowers eases asthma attacks. A poultice of elderberry flowers has anti-inflammatory effects. For those of you who are dieting, elderberries can ease hunger pangs. Elderberries contain antioxidants that prevent aging and help to stimulate the immune system. The berries and leaves are rich in vitamins A, B, and especially C. The flowers and the berries may be made into an ointment by boiling them in lard of some sort. The resulting paste may be used to soothe sunburns, other types of burns, and insect bites. It may also be used for rashes and infections of the skin. Magical uses of the elder. The elder is helpful in all magic involving the powers of reincarnation and communion with the other world. Psychopomps conduct the recently departed to the other world, and elder magic is an aid in this duty. Elderberries and elderberry wine are often used to seek visions, especially visions pertaining to the land of the young. Elderberry wine is drunk to aid in divination as well. Elder wood is polished easily to a beautiful luster, and because of this is often used in making beads and decorative jewelry. The stems of the elder are filled with white pith that may be easily removed. The resulting tubes have been used for centuries to make musical pipes and whistles. When used in ritual and spell casting, the music from these flutes is especially powerful in bridging the gap between this world and the other world. If you make a flute of elder wood, fairies are said to come and dance to your tune. Twigs of elder worn in a bag about the neck protect you from physical attack, and a string of elder beads worn around the neck or hung on the doorknob protects you and your home from angry spirits and negative energies. All elder magic is concerned with death, endings, and rebirth. Gods and goddesses associated with this tree are the Morrigan, Bran the Blessed, and the Cailleach. Listening to the Way of the Taibhsear podcast on International Pagan Radio, where it's all pagan all the time. This has been episode 18, The Inner Journey. Music on this episode featured Autumn Mists by Shenka the Vate from the album Mist on the Mountain, now available on Amazon, iTunes, and most major media outlets. Ballad of the Crystal Skulls by Tuatha, and Mishiyama-gu by Tuatha Dea. The Way of the Taibhsear is the official podcast of the Order of the Taibhsear. You can learn more about us at Taibhsear.com. That's TAIBHSEAR.com. The Way of the Taibhsear is a podcast about Druidry and paganism, as practiced by the Order of the Taibhsear. Paganism is a wide and diverse community, and we don't claim to speak for all pagans. You can get in touch with the show at podcast@Taibhsear.com. That's podcast@TAIBHSEAR.com. The Way of the Taibhsear is sponsored by Pagan Promotions. Learn more about Pagan Promotions at paganpromotions.com. Until next time, blessings of the ancestors.